Ready, set, hut. Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host, Rich Dotson, here with my fellow nerds, Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And Garrett Price.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty swell. For most of us, I'm in the Scott Fish Bowl playoffs. Good for me. You?
Not this year. Last year, not this year.
Yeah.
I 2 years in a row, but not this year.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's 2020. Weird things happen.
Yep.
Weird
honestly.
things happen. For most of us, this is a big week, right? It's week 13 of the NFL season, which means for about 95% of the leagues out there, this is the last week of the regular season.
Get that push.
So some of us have clinched.
Got to get that push.
Gotta get that push.
All right, salt and pepper. And
Push it.
Ooh.
make sure you do it real good. And so some have clinched, some are out, and if not, a lot of people are gonna be on the fence. When you get to Dynasty, there's a lot of middle of the roads team, and when you have 6 teams make the playoffs, half the league, that last week's a big week here. Right now, it seems like almost everybody's coming back that's been off like the COVID list. We're getting people coming back from injury, so there's good news there. We're coming off a big week. We have a lot to talk about today, but before we do, a word from our sponsor. That is our friends at MyBookie. I hope you guys feasted on the MyBookie Turkey Day free play that allowed users to grab themselves a risk-free bet up to $250. It was basically a free shot at trying to double your money. If you didn't get in on that, what are you doing? No, but seriously, now is the time to get some skin in the game with MyBookie, where odds boost, lightning deals, and free bets await all season long. And with the NFL playoffs right around the corner, we know who these teams are, we know what they are capable of, and it's not difficult to find some value in the lines. Whether you're a first-time customer or have been playing with MyBookie for years, there is no shortage of value to be found in the thousands of games, lines, unique prop bets, and contests that they offer every week. Sign up or get reloaded today, find an edge, make your bet, and get paid. They also boast a fully fledged casino platform giving you access to all the classic table, slot, and card games you'd expect to find at your local spot. And the best part is, at MyBookie, the doors never close, so you can continue to build your bankroll even after stadium lights have gone out. Make the right play and sign up today at MyBookie, and when you do, use the promo code NERDS to get your deposit matched halfway all the way up to $1,000. The terms are simple. You put in $200, they'll match you with another $100 in your account. If you're already planning to bet this season, do it with this free bet and money at MyBookie. It's a winning season at MyBookie. Come join in the fun and win some cash while you're at it. I'm doing pretty well over there on that platform. I'm in a league that kind of bets on this stuff. I'm in 10th place. I'm doing okay. So make sure you use that promo code NERDS. Get yourself some of that free cash, right? Or lose. You could be a loser.
You can give them money,
Kind of like Garrett and Scott Fishbowl.
Oof.
So let's get back to
It's true, though.
Only person worse than you is me, so it's fine.
Hey, be like Matt. Or you could be like me. Be a winner.
All right.
How's the Nerds Invitational going?
Dead last. Haven't won a single game. Now, in my defense,
In Dynasty, what do you always say, Rich?
when you're losing, you're winning.
You're winning.
There you go. Winner,
In my
winner,
defense
chicken dinner.
of the Dynasty Nerds Invitational, which has all the big names in it, Ryan
does.
McDowell, Kyle Yates, Garrett Price. There's
right.
Jared
Jared
Wackerly,
Evan Silva.
Connor
Danny,
Rogers.
Connor Rogers
I don't-
from Stick to Football. Danny Kelly from
Danny-
The Ringer.
All big names, right?
Benjamin Solik.
Ball Blast Girls.
Yep.
Yeah. So
We probably left out one person, and they're really upset right now.
Dude, what?
You left me out. We said Kyle. I don't remember.
yeah, we said Kyle.
We said
Yates.
somebody. We missed
But
somebody.
anyways, to be fair, I'm 0-11, right? Is that what I am, or 0-12?
0-12 now.
Okay, fantastic, right?
You lost the good.
And to be fair, when this draft was going on, I was heavily intoxicated.
Was that the one when...
Guys' Day.
Yep. Okay. I was
Yeah.
there. I remember.
Yeah, I was
He
in the pool.
literally messaged me at the one point. He was like, just pick me a player. I have no idea what I'm doing.
So I feel terrible. I'm in this league with all these like well-known analysts, and I'm the founder of Dynasty Nerds.
You're
and
asking me, and
I'm
I've
0-12.
already abandoned you too. Like I'm like, nope, you're on.
You're on your own, sucker.
You're on to texting Garrett. Like,
Yeah, I told Garrett, just pick my guys.
Yeah.
Like I'm like to say I was intoxicated is an understatement. I started drinking at 11. The draft started at what time?
Oh, sometime in the afternoon.
I don't know.
Evening. Yeah.
But there was a lot involved in
I
my
have
intoxication.
your draft pulled up here.
Oh gosh.
What was my first pick? Baker.
Michael Thomas.
Oh, that's
So
well,
That's not terrible,
Hey,
but
hey,
obviously that didn't work out this
It
season.
didn't work out.
Baker.
Then Baker. Well,
And
you
then
know,
Eckler.
nobody can stop my love.
Eckler. That's another
Eckler.
rough one for this year.
Great pick.
Yeah.
Bad 2020, but hey, good foundation.
Odell.
Garrett picked Odell for me.
I did. I paired him up with Baker since you took
Hey,
him in the second round.
After the third pick is when that's when like everything started to kick in, and I was just like, "Hey, welcome to a new reality."
Yeah, I think that was it. I think I only picked Odell for you.
Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I
Jalen
definitely
Ra-
didn't take Taylor Jones. That was definitely you.
Jalen Rager, Drew Lock, and Zach Ertz, and Mike Williams.
He must ask me on that Mike Williams.
He must ask you.
Hey, listen, I'm 0-12 for a reason.
That's right.
You just stated it. It's okay. I'm gonna get Trevor Lawrence,
There you go.
and everything's gonna be okay. I have no.
For the record, I am in first place.
Off the record, I blame Garrett for my 0-12 start. It's the only
My
time
plan worked
I've ever gone 0-12 ever. Like ever.
It would also help if you remembered what platform the league was on. That would also help.
It also doesn't help. I don't. Yeah, it's
You haven't
different
used. You don't have any other leagues in said platform.
I have no
or
other leagues in
unsaid
said platform.
Yeah, don't
And-
say it in case they want to be a sponsor.
And Garrett has to text me sometimes going, dude, your line's not in, and I forget. But to be fair, Last Nerd Stand-In is on the same platform, and I have a couple leagues on there, and I forget to set my lineup on there sometimes,
There you go. At least you're consistent.
and that costs me stuff as well. So, but the show's not about me.
No.
No.
It's not about you.
No.
It's definitely not about Garrett.
Heck no.
It's about Week 12 as we get ready for the playoffs. So let's first get through a couple like news and notes. Kind of
News
things
and
here.
notes, mostly injuries and something else.
Big thing here is Will Fuller thought it was Halloween, and he was getting it from the Pez dispenser. Turns out he's getting it from the Ped dispenser, and he got suspended with PEDs.
PEDs.
Yeah,
I didn't get where you were going there for a second.
Yeah.
With the
You
Pez.
planned that one all day, didn't you?
All
He
day
was,
drive.
he was driving home. He was like,
I'm not driving
oh,
home.
yeah, I'm going to use that one.
I'm going to
Will
get him. I'm
Fuller
going to get
Ped.
him. But anyway, that's a bummer, though. I mean, Will Fuller, he was actually having a halfway decent year.
Yeah,
He's
you want to know
wide
why?
receiver 8.
Because he's on the Ped.
Gets the Peds dispensers.
Tilted back the Ninja Turtles head, now comes another Ped. Like, oh, still healthy week. Look at me, wide receiver 1.
Wide receiver 1. Yeah,
Yeah.
He was wide receiver 8 going through week 12. And
Will Fuller would be
obviously
the Donatello of Ninja Turtles.
Donatello.
Yeah, with his little stick.
Yeah.
Nobody likes you.
Yeah.
Like, what do
I
you
don't
guys
remember which one's which, to be honest.
What? What?
I really don't.
Raphael's got the size.
I mean, I remember that it's 4 painter names, but you know.
Leonardo.
You don't remember the Ninja
with
Turtles?
swords.
I remember the Ninja Turtles. I just couldn't tell you which one's the orange one. which one's-
Michelangelo, orange nunchucks.
I am 41 years old and watched this when I was a child. I can tell you. Like, all right, Garrett.
Donatello was purple.
Okay.
And he had a bow staff.
Yeah, and nobody liked
Yeah.
him, nerd.
That's probably my favorite one.
That probably would be your favorite
He
one.
does seem like he'd be Donatello, doesn't he?
If we were the 4 Ninja Turtles, he'd for sure be Donatello.
The best
Easily.
one.
And you would be?
Oh, easily Michelangelo, the
Yeah.
cool one everyone's hanging out with. No doubt.
Wait, isn't there a nerdy one? Is that the nerdy one as well?
Donatello.
He's the nerdy one, the
Yeah,
smart
yeah,
one?
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Raphael's kind
The
of like
smart one.
the.
Donatello's always like reading a book. And stuff.
Yeah, I'm the smart one. That makes sense. All right.
Matt would be Raphael for sure, like real level headed.
Yeah,
Never
sure.
really like does anything too cool.
So what does that leave Jared with?
He's Leonardo.
Leonardo,
clearly. Yeah.
he's
There
the
we go.
leader behind the scenes.
I liked Sonic. I watched a lot of Sonic as a kid. Sonic the Hedgehog.
Did you watch the new Sonic movie?
It wasn't that bad.
It was good. My kids watch it.
Yeah.
So,
I watched it out of nostalgia.
Yeah, it was actually pretty good.
My daughter liked it.
I don't know if I think it was on TV, but I was like, while the kids were watching, I was more out watching my phone.
Jim Carrey was like the bad guy in it. He was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
Yep.
All right, let's get into Will Fuller.
So all that Ninja Turtle talk helped your Dynasty team no bits, but
Nope.
Will Fuller back. So here's the thing with Will Fuller. He's had a great year. He's helped a lot of teams, crushing them as we get ready for the rest of the year because he's been a wide receiver 1.
Right.
Usually a roller coaster. Peds have got him going straight up on that ride.
Very level.
But so let's look at this besides Will Fuller as well here. Let's look at it as the outside bubble. 2 things. Well, 3 things, I guess. 1, Will Fuller's a free agent after this year.
Yep.
Highly unlikely to probably resign in Houston because they've got to they got a lot to do there.
Yeah,
And
they
no
need to
draft
fix some
capital.
stuff.
And
That's going to be a complete rebuild, right? I mean, they're obviously keeping Deshaun Watson, but beside that, I mean, they're starting at ground zero basically with that whole offense, right?
they have no choice.
Right.
They're gonna be looking for scrap heap
Right.
help here.
I mean, it's they got Brandon Cooks there.
Brandon Cooks.
Right now, I mean, obviously Will Fuller is out of that offense. They also the day after Thanksgiving, they sent
Kenny Stills.
Kenny Stills to
He gone.
waivers. So he's gone. It's Kiki Kute as the number 2 and Isaiah Coulter as the number 3 right now.
Yeah, and there's one other guy. I'm blanking on his name. It's something generic, Michael Carter or something. He has literally 2 receptions in his entire career. So
5 tight ends.
they have
Probably Warren's coming
bunch,
back.
but that's the hard part too. They have so many tight ends that are involved.
You never know.
Knowing which one to start is so hard.
Right. It's a revolving door.
So
on which
really,
one gets
the only one you can start or you can trust for the rest of the season, it's Cooks.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yeah. That's literally it.
That's
And
it.
I think Duke Johnson's still a viable flex play here. He's been that way almost all year.
Kiki Kute, are we trusting him at all at this point? I mean, he got
Not for playoffs.
he got
Yeah. You don't trust. You don't
No.
play. I like him.
yeah.
I think he take a step forward. He's been hurt.
He was
up to this point.
He was good, and then I feel like he was in the doghouse. Like he was
was.
good his rookie year, and looked promising anyway. And then he was in the doghouse of Bill O'Brien, and now that he's out the door, he's kind of getting a second chance here. Is he an asset you guys are looking to go kind of poke around at the owner and say, hey, Kiki Kute is finally getting a second chance here. Do I want to make I mean, it wouldn't cost
You
much,
get him
right?
for free. I
Right.
mean, a 5th-round pick.
Yeah.
Offer. I mean,
If I can get him for that, sure,
I'd offer
just to
that.
see.
I'd offer that, and I'd offer that for Isaiah Coulter, like you said.
Absolutely.
Just on, you like said, he's the bigger receiver there. He's the one that's over like 6 foot.
He's 6'2". Everybody else is 5'11" or shorter.
Right.
Yeah. So the move here to make is, like, again, like we said, Houston's blowing this up. They're going to want to see what they have with their young guys. They have no draft picks next year. They're going to be kind of starting from scratch. They're going to start taking their step forward, not in 21, but in 22.
Right.
So if you can make a move, Will Fuller not coming back, and maybe they go Brandon Cooks as their number 1, and they see what they have in Kiki Kuti and Isaiah Coulter. Now, if either two of these guys step up forward, and you can get them for a 5th-round pick, a 4th-round pick, either of those guys, to me, that's a much better gamble than you could take on a rookie itself, because these are two guys that have a very good line to playing time. And production. And not only that, they're tied to Deshaun Watson.
Exactly.
And Deshaun Watson's one of the most premier top 5 dynasty quarterbacks out there today. And that was my other, when I was saying 3 things, like, okay, it's not just about Will Fuller. This hurts Deshaun Watson a little bit as well. Will Fuller's a wide receiver 1. You're taking a wide receiver 1 from a quarterback who's been playing really well, exceptionally the second half of the season.
Without his other wide receiver 1 that he had the years before.
Right.
So for me, this hurts Deshaun Watson a little bit. I think Deshaun Watson's one of those guys that he makes everybody else better around him. Yep. I thought he wasn't going to be a QB1 this year because he lost Hopkins, and I didn't love everybody around him, and he still managed to be a QB1.
He's 6 right now in the season.
And made everybody better around him. So Will Fuller, obviously, he didn't just make Will Fuller wide receiver 1. He's a big play receiver, right?
Sure. He's always had talent.
Just couldn't stay healthy.
Couldn't stay healthy.
So what did he do?
PEDs.
Yep, tilted Donatello head back and took those pets.
That's where that came from. I was trying to figure out how we even got there.
Yeah. We got off that rail because of that.
I'll pull it right back in that rail. Look at this.
Look at that.
Rail
Ninja
grind
Turtles.
in it. So, Will Fuller likely gone. Are we trading for Will Fuller? If you own Will Fuller, are you just holding on to Will Fuller? Are you trading for Will Fuller? Do you think this hurts his value?
I think this is a classic hold for me because there's so many moving parts. We talked about the PEDs. So is he healthy now because of those? Like, is that's what's helping keep him healthy? So there's that risk there. And then chances are he's not back in Houston next year. So where does he end up? There's been tons linking him to Green Bay for practically forever, but that still has not materialized.
I mean, they tried to trade for him.
They tried to trade for him. They just weren't willing to offer quite enough.
Right.
So, but Green Bay could easily take one in the draft, or they could just keep doing what they're doing and never invest in another wide receiver again, and Aaron Rodgers will still be just fine. So who knows where he's going to end up? It's too volatile of an option right now to really do much of anything with. So I think he's a classic hold.
I was going to say, the question really in my mind is, if he leaves Houston, is he going to get another job as just a deep threat, or is he going to be a number 1 wide receiver on another team? And I think that's what you have to try to figure out when you're looking at his value. And to me, if he goes somewhere else, somebody's going to see him, and they're going to see him as a number 2, a complimentary guy, in my opinion. So that's why I'm not going to go out there and try to trade for this guy.
But if he goes to the team we just mentioned, the team that tried to trade for him, the team that has interest in him, the team that clearly needs a number 2 receiver, that's going to be a Super Bowl contender, Green Bay Packers, to be in the number 2 in an Aaron Rodgers-led offense outside of Devontae Adams with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers,
Sure.
we'd probably be still looking at a wide receiver 1 if he's healthy. I mean, Rodgers would crush with Will Fuller as a deep threat, opposite of Devontae Adams, and Will Fuller constantly seeing the number 2 cornerback on the outside.
Would he crush though, or would he be this kind of up and down type of guy that we've seen all along? Because I mean, if that's the kind of routes you're going to be running, it's just naturally built into it, just a little bit of that kind of hit or miss type of scenario.
I think with Rodgers it'd be more hit. Like I think his 3 to 4 catches would be 3 to 4 catches, 80 yards, and he finishes the year with 8 touchdowns. Right. You know, like every other game you're getting a touchdown out of him, just because Devontae Adams is going to open so much more for you. It's going to help Devontae Adams as well. So I don't know. I'm with you guys. Like I'm holding Will Fuller unless I can get a first for him, because there's another point to sell him at this point. I mean, he's out for the year. Maybe you're a playoff contender. Maybe you weren't. So the season's pretty much over. Right. There's no point in trading him for a second. If I could get a player that somebody hopes that he signs, but I think the real hold is you don't trade now. You wait till he signs, because most likely most of these players, when they do sign, you see a spike in value, unless it's going somewhere awful,
real
like
terrible.
You know, Baltimore, he signs it. You know what I mean? Oof. But for the most point, you see a spike in value, and it's always then you want to sell, because 90% of these wide receivers that go to other teams never produce like they did on their old teams. I mean, Robert Woods did. Deshaun Jackson had some good years outside of Washington.
Well, we did have 2 cases of it this year with Nuke and Stephon Diggs.
Well, Nuke's completely different. Nuke's a different tier player,
a caliber of player.
It doesn't matter where he's at; he's going to be successful. Sure. He actually went to a better. You can't say better, an equal situation where he's the number one and got a contract extension. Who was the other guy you said?
Stephon Diggs.
Stephon Diggs. Well, like we know, Gary, he's
amazing.
He's an upper echelon as well.
He might be the best.
Like a middle echelon player that went to a better situation. So yeah.
Middle echelon.
Haters
gonna hey. We all have those guys.
Haters gonna hate.
Those guys.
So Will Fuller's a hold. Deshaun Watson's a hold. Hurts him in the playoffs. Helps Brandon Cooks. But
actually, Deshaun Watson might be a buy. If this has dipped his value at all,
if it dips his value, you don't even know what you're. Just stop playing Dynasty.
There's
a lot of people that don't know what they're doing.
Well, that's why we do this podcast.
I'm not saying his value will dip, but if it does at all, I'm absolutely buying. Especially if I'm not a contender. Like if I'm a rebuild team and I'll be like, okay, I'll give you Rodgers right now for Deshaun Watson. Rodgers probably has a better outlook for the rest of the season.
In Superflex leagues, I've had a couple leagues where I have Deshaun Watson. The only league I've ever traded him in, was for Pat Mahomes. That was it.
That worked out.
And that was I had to give up Calvin Ridley and Watson, Ridley's rookie year before like week 2 for Mahomes. And that's it. I would never trade him I would never trade Watson. So, and so the move here for Dynasty is nothing to do with Brandon Cooks. Maybe you're making a playoff push, go for Cooks here. Maybe for like a second, give up a Cooks for like if you say you lost Will Fuller and the Cooks owner is out of the playoffs, throw a 21-second at the owner for Cooks.
See what happens.
I mean, I don't love Cooks either, but it's not a bad play because he's going to be the number one guy.
Yeah, and I would sell Cooks for a second and be okay with it in 21 class if I was out of it, right? So that's the move. And if you're a contender out of it, no matter what, I think the move is if you're a contender, I'd maybe try to offer a fourth for Coulter or
Kiki
Kuti. Just for the gamble part of it.
Sure.
If you're top 3 pick, top 4, maybe offer a fifth. See if you can get those. Maybe hardball, you still go with the fourth. Not a big deal.
I have no problems giving up fourths for anybody. You know what I mean? Like for anything that has anybody that has any value.
Coulter or Kiki, which one you want?
I think I like Coulter personally with a long-term value. He's a taller version of a Will Fuller because he's just as fast. So, I mean, he ran like a 4.42 or a 4.43.
Kicked ass at Rhode Island, right?
So, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, I'd go Coulter too. I think he has more upside.
I always go when it's a coin flip. I'm like, who's bigger and who's younger?
Whenever Rich is juggling, it's usually the guy that wins is the taller guy, right?
If you saw me juggling, you would not be like this guy. My coordination's bad enough as it is. Me trying to juggle is just like I'm looking at the one going up, like, how am I supposed to catch that one? And then I wait till it hits my hand, and then I throw the other one up.
That's why you just hold both your crystal balls in your hands.
That's all you gotta hold.
No
That's
juggling.
true.
No
That's
juggling.
Do either one of you remember the Office scene where Will Fuller's the manager for a little bit and he does like the juggling routine?
Will Fuller? Will Ferrell?
Will Ferrell.
Yes. Will Ferrell.
No, I don't remember
that. Although Will Fuller would have been great on that.
That would have been amazing. I was trying to picture it. I'm like, really?
Shows up with a Pez dispenser. He's like, what's going on around here? I feel great.
Open up.
That's what she said. All right, let's move on. Daniel Jones, we have a couple injuries. Daniel Jones considered week to week the hamstring injury. Doesn't affect anything. Daniel Jones, listen, I'm still the president by default of the Daniel Jones fan
haven't
club.
been impeached?
Not yet.
Okay.
But I'll say this much. As the president, I will not back down on my candidate or my my guy that I'm the president of this fan club for.
Yeah.
But after next year, if Daniel doesn't get together and stop throwing these interceptions, and to be fair, this offensive line needs to get significantly better too.
Yep.
And I will say this, for the second half of the year, their first round pick, Andrew Thomas, the left tackle they took in the top 6 pick, has played significantly better than the first half that got Saquon out. I will have to formally resign.
That's the thing. He's missing a lot of pieces. He's missing Saquon Barkley. They don't have like a bona fide number one there. Sterling Shepard's a nice player, but he's not a number one.
He's a possession guy.
Yeah.
Get you the first down.
Great slot guy, great wide receiver 2 for an NFL team, or a wide receiver 3 for your fantasy
and
team.
what's his name? It has got a
Darius Slayton.
Slayton's got a foot, right? That he's
got 2 feet, Mike.
That he's battling through a foot injury. Rich.
I haven't heard anything about that.
I thought it was a foot or an ankle.
Hey, guess what?
Like
I have a foot too.
Okay.
But no, as much as I love Darius Slayton, I would probably be the president of his fan club. But they absolutely could use another receiver, and he would be amazing as what Will Fuller was for DeAndre Hopkins. Right. The deep threat, making the big plays, have those monster weeks. But they absolutely could use a big physical receiver to be that more prototype X there.
And guess what? This draft is full of them.
Full of those guys.
So Daniel Jones, hurt this year, might be a nice offseason buy in Superflex leagues on the youth because, again, I don't think his interceptions, like his accuracy had come out of Duke was not a question for me.
It wasn't a big
issue. It was one of
issue.
his strong suits. I just think there's a lot going around in New York. Kyle Shanahan says he hopes Kittle and Jimmy G can return for the season. Sounds like, who cares about Jimmy G? But sounds like Kittle's like really close.
He's pushing it.
So maybe week 14 for the playoffs, he might salt and pepper and push it real good too, right into the playoffs for those number one fantasy points.
I don't think many people are relying on Jimmy G to do much of anything, but I think he helps his wide receiver and his backs and everything like that, and his tight ends more so than a Nick Mullins at this point, who I think he just looked largely ineffective.
Should be like more like Nick Mulligan. Can I pick that up and try again?
Right.
But speaking of San Francisco, who's back? My guy. Now, so I have a lot of regrets about 2020, right? Well, I don't personally, but the world does.
Sure.
About 2020. And it's my biggest regret, and I hate myself for this, and I realized it the other day watching the game, is why the Hades did I not make offers for Deebo Samuel in every league when he was out for the extended period of time? What was I doing? What silliness? I'm supposed to be a Dynasty aficionado, right? I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. We do a podcast for thousands upon thousands of people to give them advice. And I not once came on this podcast and said, guys, gals, Deebo's been out for a while. His value has plummeted. This was projected strike.
Prediction strike.
Prediction strike.
Yep.
Our go-to.
Yeah.
It'd have been pennies on the dollar, right?
It would have been. It would have been a penny stock right now.
Seeing him come back.
Not now, but
not anymore.
It I watched him play it this week, slapped me in the face.
And you just remember, you're like,
he is so dynamic with the football in his hand. When he was coming out, we said, this guy,
we gushed.
He was a first round pick for us. We loved him. We explained why we loved him. He's one of the most electric players with the ball in his hands. San Francisco designs run plays for him, and they get the ball to him in the flat, in short, open areas, and he's just go in dynamic.
And the nice part is he can win as a true wide receiver, too. He's not a gadgety player where you have to manufacture touches for him. He can still get it done the traditional way. It just so happens that he can also get it done a myriad of other ways.
Yeah, he's like a tougher Terry McLaurin.
I don't love it.
You don't love it?
No.
I think he's a pretty good route runner.
Terry's like a technician.
Speedy
type of, and Deebo's much more physical.
Very physical.
Much more physical.
Okay. Bad comp.
Okay.
Yep. I forgot. It's been a while.
So
it's been a while.
It's been a while since you watched it.
What you were saying earlier goes to show you out of sight, out of mind. And even guys that do this literally all the time, we miss on player, we forget about players just because. So these are the type of things that as a dynasty player you have to try to stay on top of as much as possible, because anyone can forget about them, even us. So go out there and don't forget about these, especially these young guys going in their second and third years that are injured.
We're going to do a show on that.
Yeah, those are big time targets.
Once the season's over here, as we get into off season, this is where we start to talk about, okay, these are the buys, these are the sells. Don't forget about, like you said, don't forget about these young guys. Yeah. Don't forget about the Brian Edwards who can come back into 2021.
Yep.
Don't forget about, Jerry Jeudy. the guys that have still have opportunity to come. Cam Akers falls into that line as well. So Deebo Samuel's back. If you could buy him for the playoff push by any way means, buy him up.
Buy him up, absolutely.
I'd give a 21 first and a 21 second for
too.
Deebo Samuel in a second.
Yep.
So some teams that haven't had him are probably on the bottom end, not making the playoffs. Most likely, he was a first round pick not too long ago. If they're not making the playoffs, and you can make a package, hey, I'll give you a first and a second for Deebo. This time of year, when people are just out of it, sometimes they're just looking. They're thinking draft picks, and they're not even thinking right, knowing that's a bad deal. But I would do that in a second.
Absolutely.
I love that guy.
Yep.
I love him so much. Tua might come back. I'm sorry, I'm so emotional.
Don't get choked up about it, Rich.
Tua's coming back. His thumb, maybe.
Yeah, so he's got a thumb injury. Are you serious?
miss
Are
him
you
so
seriously going to cry, man?
No, I'm not
You're gonna
really
be okay.
gonna
Come on.
You might.
So obviously, Ryan Fitzpatrick this past week.
My eye stuck together.
I could see that. Ryan Fitzpatrick started this week, didn't look bad, but Tua, obviously, they want to get him in there and see what they have for the future. I mean,
It's so weird though, because I agree. I think that's what they want to do in part of their mind, but in the other part, they're like, we could easily make the playoffs.
we
Like,
might be
we're right there.
We
and
might have a shot at this thing.
does
Yeah.
Ryan Fitzpatrick give us a better shot than Tua does at this point in his career? Obviously, we have high hopes for him in the future, but at this point, like, Ryan Fitzpatrick legitimately might be the better option for them.
I don't know about that.
He might be, but he might not. You know, if he has one of those 5 interception games that he's prone to have.
It's possible, but he's chilled out on that the past couple of years. I feel like there hasn't been as many of those blow up games as there once was.
Because I think the people who coach him and have control of whether or not he's going to be in the game or not.
They said, wait, what's the – yeah, no, you're not going this
He's
game.
always, you know what I mean? He's always that bridge guy. He's going to be that guy that's going to get replaced. And the second he kind of looks like he's taking they yank him and get the young guy in there. So that's the way it's going to go for Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think.
That's the way I like it.
Yeah.
Todd Gurley is hopeful to come back this week after missing last week. Dalvin Cook might miss some time with the ankle injury, but it says it's not as bad as they thought it was going to be. So there's a chance he could play this week.
Yeah, there's still a shot. And I guess he actually practiced it on limited practice today, because I put this together yesterday before the snowstorm and all that stuff.
Right.
And it sounds like the news has actually improved on him since then a little bit.
It just sounds like he's generally banged up. I mean, which running backs at this time of year are. I mean, he's got, obviously, what was it, the shoulder? Was that what was keeping him out? Or
I don't even remember at this point.
Okay.
He missed the one game.
You're right. He had that quote say he's fine. He's like, what do you mean? I'm fine. And he's like, would you ask Derrick Henry that question if he's banged up? Yeah, so actually he is going to play this week.
I think he is going to end up playing.
I think he's going to play.
I think it's more Josh Jacobs we're a little bit more worried
I think he's going
about.
to play.
Which one?
Dalvin Cook.
Dalvin Cook. I think he'll play. But
I think he's going to play.
The question you have to ask yourself is he going to be in there as much as he has in the past, or are they going to work in Alexander Madison a little bit
Madison
more?
in a little bit more.
I would think that since he's so beat up and he, you know, like this is either wearing basically down here as the season goes along, that they're going to start using the backup a little bit more.
The hard part is at this point in the year, like, he's so good, you have to trot him out there no matter what. Even if you're worried that he's only going to get 10 to 12 touches, like, you probably don't have two better options than Dalvin Cook.
I need more than that because I have Dalvin Cook in my Scott Fishbowl team, and I'm trying to advance.
So let's shoot for 16 to 20.
Trying to make a name for myself in this business.
Scott Fishbowl.
I'm starting to get emotional again.
Oh gosh.
Josh Jacobs, like you said, he might miss some time, which is to make it the Jalen Richard show. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know who's going to be the guy out there.
He missed this past week, so I think it would actually be Booker, who's been playing surprisingly well.
Yeah, not bad.
Like, he's had a couple games where he's actually put
He's
together
always
some.
done that. He's always had a couple games where it's like, can Devontae Booker be the guy?
No.
Well, we don't have to worry about that here. We know Josh Jacobs is the guy, but you might be desperate and need to start a guy like Devontae Booker.
Jordan Wilkins is banged up,
Ouch.
but because Jonathan Taylor's probably got to miss this week too because of the COVID protocols.
Well, he actually did not have COVID, so he was a close contact of
Oh,
someone.
he was a close contact? So he'll be back this week.
So he'll be back this week.
As long as he
And real quick, Richard practiced full today.
So, yeah, so it must have just been a freak thing that he was out. So it probably would be a split between Richard and Booker.
Oh, okay. And then DJ Moore looked like it could have been real bad, like non-contact, could have possibly been
was
his
scary.
Achilles. Turns out it was just his ankle. He's okay. Well, he'll be okay when he comes back after the bye for week 13. And we're going to get Christian McCaffrey back.
Right. Which is so weird to have a week 13 bye.
very odd.
There was no bye weeks this week.
No.
How did they not schedule that for week 12 instead of week 13?
That is really weird.
So weird.
What's really weird, too, is like,
I wonder if they did that just so they could, if they needed to have a week 12 bye for a team, they could throw it in there.
Maybe
due to like all the. But you'd
COVID
think
stuff.
they would have done that for
right
like the team.
for a lot of teams.
Yeah, whatever. The NFL's been real weird about.
Are they the only team on bye this week?
Them and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So if you've been waiting for Christian McCaffrey,
One more week,
and you made the playoffs, he'll be back just in time for your playoffs.
and I'm trotting him out there right away.
All my redraft leagues where I end up with the first pick. Thanks for nothing.
And DJ Moore for sure is okay. I haven't heard like the
It's not 100% sure that he's going to be back and playing, but it sounds like it's an ankle we're worried about, not an ACL or an Achilles or something like that.
But he could still miss 2-3 weeks.
It's possible, but they're optimistic he should be back week 13.
Okay.
Garrett, how about a word from our sponsors?
Let's go on over to our guys at
money.
PredictionStrike.com. Prediction Strike is the only performance-based sports stock market where you can buy and sell shares of professional athletes just like they were stocks.
These silly athletes. Hey, are you trying to make money or are you trying to be an athlete? Athlete.
How am I the one that said that? All of the things Rich says, and I'm the one that says athlete.
Well, listen, if you're not on Prediction Strike, you're an athlete.
That's really what you are.
So get together over there, and you're trying to make money. Debo Samuel, invest.
Debo Samuel would be
Debo
great.
Samuel's cost on Prediction Strike is right now. Whatever it is, buy it.
Buy it.
Too low.
It's too low. It's just
Too
gonna
low.
It's just gonna go up.
Right now, with all the Carson Wentz stuff, Jalen Hurts maybe?
No.
Short term. Short term.
No term.
Buy it and flip it. Buy it
No
and flip
term.
it.
Sell
No
sell
term.
next week.
Wouldn't buy Jalen Hurd for a sandwich.
I'm not a believer either. But at PredictionStrike.com, that's exactly what you get to do. You get the opportunity to look at all of these NFL players that you like. You get to do all of the things that we talk about in season and off season. Why are we all laughing still? I see you, Jared, laughing at me. You're still thinking about athlete, aren't you?
Because I'm typing athlete in the show sheet.
Oh, so you can get started today by visiting PredictionStrike.com and sign up with the code DYNASTY to get an additional $10 for your first deposit of $20 or more. That is PredictionStrike.com, code DYNASTY.
Yeah, don't be an athlete. Get in there and make some cash. So let's look at some outlooks here.
Matt, I thought you said your read was bad. I think mine are getting worse ever since then.
That one was bad. Mine was pretty epically bad though as well. You're fine.
All right.
I have a speech impediment, and I could do better than that.
I have a reading impediment. Like I can talk pretty well.
But when you try to read at the same time,
yeah, it
doesn't work.
Nope.
Okay.
Well, apparently I just make up words.
It's all
when
good,
I, when I
athlete.
do it.
Athletes.
We should get Letterman jackets for all these athletes.
Let's talk about another current athlete. Elite. I can't even say it now.
You can't even mess up my mess up.
Thuffer and Thuckatash. What is the dynasty outlook right now of Drew Lock? This is a guy who's only crossed 20 points in a game twice this season, QB 29 overall on the season. A huge hype name here in preseason. When they drafted Jerry Jeudy, they got Cortland Sutton. They got
Melvin Gordon
they signed here. Phillip Lindsay. Noah Fant.
KJ Hamler.
It's things look great. Quarterback 29. Matt, you talked about this earlier in the year about, hey, he's kind of reverted back to what we hated about what he did in college.
Right. No, I saw a lot of the same things, and I think it was like he was throwing like 30% or something like that while under pressure, and he was the most pressured quarterback in the entire league. So all these defensive coordinators are seeing the exact same thing that I think we saw pre-draft with Drew Lock. So where I feel like you jumped on board a little bit more, so you're in the bandwagon here for Drew Lock. I kind of stayed.
Couple games, he looked really good.
I stayed very on the outside.
Yeah,
Did like what I
really
saw towards the end of the year, but I wanted to make sure to see it for like another full year before I kind of bought into this player. And I feel like, I mean, personally, they gave him all the weapons that he needed to they gave him enough rope to hang himself this year. And I think he kind of has a little bit. So
especially in a draft with potentially 6 first-round quarterbacks.
Exactly. John Elway is out there running the show. He knows what quarterbacking is supposed to look like, and I'm sure that he knows better than I that they need to look for another quarterbacks, in next year's draft.
Yeah, I'm just as worried as you are. It's a guy I don't have necessarily in any leagues. I've never been a huge believer in him as a player, and I think it was kind of one of those things where, and we all fall into the trap of putting situation over talent. And I think the situation looked really, really good.
Right.
Lots of young receivers. But the other thing I think that we kind of forgot is these are still all like first and second year players with the exception of Melvin Gordon. These are all really, really young guys. So to assume that they're all going to come in right away and perform, I think is also a little bit of a mistake. So is it necessarily like dead, closed, shut the door? No, he could still rebound. He could still make something of it and give himself enough to get a shot at the beginning of the year next year. But we've seen a trend more so with these GMs now where they have a much shorter leash on these guys, and it seems like the minute they don't think that they're the guy, they'll take. I mean, that's what happened in Arizona with Rosen and a lot of different situations. Dwayne Haskins is kind of in that same boat now. Absolutely. It looks like. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if that's what ends up happening with Drew Lock.
The financial commitment's not there anymore. Like they had to pay these guys $60 million up front, but they used to. Now they don't have to do that anymore. So it's easy for a GM to turn the page if they don't like what they're seeing.
And Drew Lock's a second-round pick, so the value is definitely not
even
there
lower
monetarily wise.
Yep.
For me personally, I'm kind of leaning towards if I'm in a super flex league, I'd be okay with paying a second-round pick for Drew Lock if I can get him. Like you mentioned, everybody else around him is still really young. I still envision this team giving him a chance in 21. Okay. I still think he's the starter in 2021. I think they look to bolster that defensive up a little bit better for them. They've suffered a ton of injuries. They have a lot of things go wrong there in Denver this year. So for me, I could see them saying, okay, yeah, Drew Lock, we gave him more weapons, but they're young weapons. And it's been a crazy year. You're losing Von Miller on defense, losing Cortland Sutton before the year even started, who is his number one receiver, who he had his best rapport with. His two new starters, Tim Patrick he had last year, who's filled in. He's a nice receiver, but he's like one of those really nice NFL receivers every team would want on their team. Like if you're a Denver Broncos fan,
third guy,
you like Tim Patrick a lot, most likely. We have him here in Cleveland. He's Rashard Higgins, essentially.
Right.
And so for me, you bring in his other weapons are a second-year tight end who takes usually 3 years to develop, two rookie receivers, one of them KJ Hamler, who was used sparingly at Penn State, coming here to try and be a starter here as well. So to me, I think it even be fair to Drew Lock, to him as a GM, I would give him one more year. So to me, it might be somewhat of a buy-in window to get him back healthy with a guy like Cortland Sutton, who's that big receiver, really good at the jump ball, which can help Drew Lock a little bit more too. And maybe work with him his offseason about being so panicky about seeing the grass blow too hard his way. So for me, I look at Drew Lock. I don't think it's over. The arrow is definitely pointing down at a very sharp angle on his stock, but I think young enough and the weapons around. I would still gamble a little bit off the weapons around him, and still off the end of his 21 tape or his 19 tape, where he looked okay, and he still showed some flashes this year of he could be an actual NFL quarterback. So will he ever be a QB1? No, but if he could be a mid-range QB2, maybe. But at the same time in Superflex, my counter argument to myself would be, like you mentioned, there's 6 first-round rookie quarterbacks coming in next year. We have a lot of good young quarterbacks. I mean, just this year alone, we have Herbert, Burrow, and Tua. All 3 guys I would want in any Superflex league. And then now go these last couple of years of guys who've been playing really well that are young. I mean, Kyler Murray is my number 2 overall Dynasty quarterback in Superflex leagues.
And we also have a lot of quarterbacks that could potentially take jobs that are veterans that might not have a home, like Sam Darnold and Jameis Winston and different guys like that. So there is a lot of competition out there for quarterback jobs.
You think Jameis would be a starter again?
I don't.
I don't either.
I don't either. He turns the ball over too much.
He does. It would have to be a very special, specific situation. I think the only way he becomes a starter again is if he's a backup, that guy gets hurt, and he just lights the world on fire. I think that's his only path.
Comes in and he pulls the Nick Foles or
Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah,
if he needs to sit for like 2 years and just learn how to play quarterback without throwing interceptions and without fumbling the ball, and then he'd be good. But
it's a good spot for it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, moving on here is Zeke Elliott. Still a top 5 quarterback.
I'm going to say no at quarterback for sure. Maybe running back?
Perhaps tight end.
Who's a better tight end? Ezekiel Elliott or Leonard Fournette?
Leonard Fournette usually.
Top 5 running back. So it's interesting. Jared and I were talking about this on the way up here on our drive. And right away he was like, yes, absolutely. And then we actually talked about all the running backs.
Yeah, then you started
and he was like, don't know.
He is definitely getting on the border. I think it's a really interesting question because even when you watch that last game, the commentators were talking about how he's lost the explosion that he showed early on in his career.
Sure.
And is that a product of the offensive line in front of him just not opening up holes? He's not getting to the second level, so you don't see the explosion, or is it a scheme thing where now he's in a different scheme than he was in the past, so they're just not using him in the same ways?
No Dak Prescott.
There's a lot going wrong with that offense, so it's hard to just sit back and dissect. Like, is it just Zeke, or is it all this other stuff that's going on around him? And that's kind of, I think, the heart of what we need to talk about here.
I mean, top 5 is, I think, that's right where he is, like right around there 5. I think the craziest thing is anybody who's playing fantasy or owns Zeke or anything would be like, oh, dude, he's having an awful, awful year. He's running back 8 on the year.
Right.
He's a running back 1.
Right.
He's the top of the bottom third of a running back 1. Running back 8, he's a championship caliber running back here. He's better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's better than Kareem Hunt. Well, he should be better than Kareem Hunt. But, I mean, there's not a lot of guys like ahead of him. And some of the guys ahead of him are like somewhat fluky, like Antonio Gibson's ahead of him. Antonio Gibson's running back 5 on the year, but Antonio Gibson has an outlying number of touchdowns, right? He's has this crazy amount of touchdowns that it's hard to sustain definitely on a team in Washington.
So let's go through the names real quick. Would you rather have – so Christian McCaffrey, we're easily going to say above him. Mm-hmm. Dalvin Cook or Zeke?
I think I'd probably take Dalvin Cook.
I would take Dalvin Cook today.
Saquon Barkley.
I would take Saquon Barkley.
Okay, so that's 3. This is going to be a tough one. Derrick Henry.
I would take Zeke Elliott.
Okay. Matt?
I mean, obviously for this year you're not, but I think Zeke for the dynasty value. Yep.
Okay, so we'll say there's still 3 then. Alvin Kamara.
I am somewhat worried that Drew Brees is out of the offense and Alvin Kamara's production has dipped drastically.
That's my hesitation as well, but I'll still take Kamara ahead of him, I think.
I would still take Kamara ahead of him too.
Okay, so there's 4.
Okay.
So this is where it's going to get real interesting then. Aaron Jones.
Oh, Zeke.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Josh Jacobs.
Zeke. Here's why. For me, let me just tell you why.
No, it's Zeke.
It's because Denver the Raiders keep bringing in these other running backs. They don't throw in the football. It's just, I'm taking Zeke. Not like it's like leaping and bounds, but to me, it's Zeke.
Okay. And then after that, I think Nick Chubb would be the only other one that would be in the conversation.
So
I think, okay, for me personally, I think Nick Chubb's in the conversation. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is in the conversation. For me personally, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is in the conversation.
Derrick Henry.
Again, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a team that they bring it. Derrick Henry is in the conversation 100%. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a guy who they bring in Le'Veon Bell. He's a rookie. He's still learning this offense. He's their long-term level and be there next year. He looked really good. Still a running back 1, running back number 12 on the year. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still kind of like, it's weird. Like people are like, he's the 1-1. People are like, oh, nobody's really like, the hype has died down on him like drastically. It's weird to me, but I think he's in that conversation. And I also think, I think going forward, starting in 2021, I think DeAndre Swift could be.
I was going to ask that because obviously they cleared out Matt Patricia, the coaching staff, the Bob Quinn, the GM, and now Darrell Bevell, the offensive coordinator, is running the show there. And he's already talked about upping the tempo of the offense, getting more offensive plays, and and that's only going to lead to more opportunities for a guy like DeAndre Swift.
The other part of this conversation that we haven't had yet is he is really the oldest running back of all of these guys that we've talked about. Last year, 2 years ago, we were talking about Todd Gurley in that same range, talking about Melvin Gordon, David Johnson, a lot of those types of guys. All those guys are gone. Are we worried that Zeke is headed for that, or do we think he's different than those guys?
I think he's different than those guys, but I think at the same time, it's very easily he's heading that way because we just see it. It's again, I play Dynasty by going by history, by what I see and what the history of the story of the game is. I've been playing a very long time, so I've seen a lot of things. In the history of these running backs is now it looks like Zeke has begun his downhill trend.
Here's one more that I didn't mention that I know you guys are both big fans of, so I want to throw it out there. Austin Eckler.
I would take Zeke.
Yeah, they're roughly the same age.
But again, I'd put Eckler in that group we just talked about.
Sure.
Here's the problem with Zeke is if you own Zeke, you're looking for top 4 payback running back money, right?
To sell him.
To sell him.
Yep.
But the problem is now Zeke is, and maybe he changes that narrative when Dak comes back next year and the offensive line gets healthy, which is very possible. Because remember, now he's going to be 26 when that happens as well. So once you get above the age of 25, the running back value starts to go down very sharply.
Pretty quick, yep.
I like to trade my running backs around the age of 26, and I get that huge haul for him. So the problem is with the Zeke owners is they're going to overvalue when he's in that tier of top 4, when most likely all these second tier guys, all those guys that we just talked about, they're like, okay, maybe where I said Zeke, but they're all in the same value. So I would much rather pay, so we mentioned 6 guys there, right? I'd much rather pay running back 11, 12 price, like a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire who's running back 12, than the Zeke price, right? Like,
sure.
Whatever you have to give up for Zeke is going to be drastically more most likely than Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Nick Chubb. Well, Nick Chubb's a pretty hard guy to get sometimes. He's so damn good. I think Nick Chubb he's one of the most he could do so much more. But for me, I think the Zeke owner, which I get why, if I was a Zeke owner personally, I would be looking to sell, because I think everybody's he's had a bad year. He's still running back 8, but I think the value is still there enough where you can still get 2 first-round picks and maybe something on top.
Or maybe like a Dobbins and a late first.
Or a late, yeah.
I would do either one of those trades for him because I do think his value is going down. If you can't get that, though, I think his value will have a slight bump.
Early 21.
That's when you're looking to get out.
And I think that's when I'm looking to get out.
Okay.
But when you see that, though, when you see trends like this, that the players can't overcome, it's kind of like the Alvin Kamara we mentioned. Drew Brees, there's a slight drop there. That stuff with a running back worries me, and it should worry you too as a dynasty player, because if a player can't pick himself up or transcend that, then there's just a lot to worry about, because there's reasons because of that. The running back shelf life is just too short. It's just too short. You have the hashtag 2-3-year window. It's too short to be worrying about it when you go out there and draft a guy, down the road. If I could trade Zeke for DeAndre Swift in a first-round pick, I would do that all day, because I have the upside in the youth of DeAndre Swift, and now I have another guy to come in here and plug in a deep draft class.
There's always a guy that slides. You know what I mean?
Sure.
DeAndre Swift was the guy this year. That he was an all-world talent that went to a crappy situation. Lo and behold, halfway through, not even full way through the season, a little bit more than halfway through the season, that situation has completely changed.
Yep.
And so trading a guy like Zeke for one of these younger guys and a first round draft pick is the way to stay on top.
Now, the one thing I will say,
you have to.
Go ahead. You're good. You're good.
You have to make that move, like Matt said. If you play Dynasty, you have to. And it's not just Zeke. You got to entertain ideas about Kamara about this as well. And it's not just this. This isn't just because this week. I say this for years on this podcast. The running back will always be the most fluid position on my roster, because you get the biggest bang for your buck in return besides your young receiver. It's the easiest player to replace on your roster, hands down, bar none. And if you think I'm wrong, look at where we're at this year in 2020, right? Zeke Elliott's running back 8. Want to know who running back 4 and 5 are? James Robinson and Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson was a second-round pick. James Robinson wasn't even drafted in your rookie picks. Number running back 10 on the year is Ronald Jones, was left for dead. Turd Ferguson himself, who can't catch a cold during COVID era, right? This is a guy who so look at running back 1s. Ronald Jones, Mike Davis, Antonio Gibson, James Robinson. If you're holding on to these running backs for they're just dynasty gold, that is not the case. They're replaceable. You can go out there and get James Robinson early in the year. You could take Zeke Elliott right now and flip him for another young running back, like you said, J.K. Dobbins plus DeAndre Swift plus. You take that all day, because odds are these guys are going to have a year or two of running back 1 numbers, because it's so fluid in that position. Odds are of J.K. Dobbins being a running back 1 next year are pretty high. The odds of DeAndre Swift being a running back 1 next year are pretty high. And if you just compare him to a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's in a much better offense, who has 152.6 points, averaging 13.9 on a year, right? We can expect that hopefully from Swift or Dobbins. Zeke, 169 points. So he's got 169 points. So he's literally got, 15, 17 more points?
17 more points, yep.
So about 1.5 more points per game. That's not a difference maker between you going to the playoffs and not going to playoffs, or winning championship, not winning a championship. But the price tag is drastically different on those players.
And churn.
And actually, I think it's actually even closer than you said, because I think you might be on standard, because I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 10 at 14.8 points per game.
No, I'm on Fantasy Pros weeks 1 through 12. PPR.
Oh, I have weeks 1 through 11.
There you go. Okay. So I'll let you get your point for a minute, but
yeah, you're good.
It's a reason I hammer this point on this show year after year. It's a reason I don't use it enough that the show kind of based off of the hashtag 2 to 3 year window. I want to make sure it's on it. It's a theory that I believe in Dynasty that works, and it works consistently. I do it in all my leagues, Matt. In our 17-year-old league, how often do I flip those running backs?
Constantly. That's how you stay on top. Yeah, that's how you do it.
And my team's consistently on top. It's because I get these running backs, and then guess what? I draft one, or I do the move where I trade for a younger guy who ends up being good, and then I use him for 2 years, and I flip him. Joe Mixon, he was hurt this year. Once Joe Mixon is good again, he's off my team.
Yep.
That's it. He's gone. You know what I mean? Saquon Barkley, when he comes back, I'll use him for 2 more years, and then I'll flip him for a haul. I do it with my all-time love, LaDainian Tomlinson. I do with every, it just.
You held on to him a little bit longer, though.
He's an outlier, though.
He was an outlier.
He's an outlier.
Now, the one thing I will say that's different about Kamara and Zeke and some of these guys versus Gurley and Gordon and those is these guys actually still have contracts that are paid beyond, their first contract, where Gurley only got his first contract.
Sure. Yep.
Melvin Gordon only got his first contract. David Johnson sort of got a second contract in there, but he just kind of, RIP.
Right.
So that is the one thing that I will say is slightly different than those guys. Even though I was the one that brought up that point, it's just something to keep in the back of your mind. They have a tiny bit more security than the RBs of old, but I think that's only gives you more value to be able to sell them.
I say fake news because one, use that as
it's real.
No, use
they
that
do
as
have
argument,
contracts,
but they do have contracts and use that as leverage, right?
Right. That's what I would do.
That guaranteed money is going to be like almost all those are like 2-year contracts, right? So it's like this year,
it's funny money at the back end.
Exactly. Yep. It's like by the time you get your usage out of them, or the other team gets their usage out of them, your younger player, like the contract I want is Clyde Edwards-Helaire contract, right? A 5-year contract that's on a rookie salary that there's no reason to get rid of the guy at all, right? So it's kind of like I use that as leverage. Like, hey, dude, Zeke just signed his contract. He's there. He's got 4 years. It's not really 4, or 5 years, and he's having a bad year, but he's still running back 8. It's like, okay, well, I'll pay running back 8 price. Why do I know you got to pay running back top 4 first round startup price? It's like, no, I'm not paying that price. You know what I mean? Like I am selling Zeke, and it's just because it's not just. I want to make the point here though is like I'm not selling Zeke because he's having a bad year. It's just this is the time you sell Zeke. Right. This is about the time you sell Alvin Kamara. You sell
It's getting there. Yeah, they're into their second contract. Yeah, they're into their second contracts, and it's just time at the running back position to start moving on from these players. If you want to stay on top, if you want to go down with the ship, go down with the ship.
No problem with that either.
I mean, I don't condone that. That's not like the way you're going to stay on top and be tops of your league for an extended period of time. But if you love whatever player, don't trade him, I guess.
No, it's Dynasty fantasy football, guys. We're not playing redraft here. I know the running back's the hot thing to do, but again, it's too easy to move in Dynasty, and it's the biggest bang you get. Right now, like I said, if you have Zeke and you're out of the playoffs because he didn't have that great of a year, you can flip him to the playoff team for a decent return. Like I've had a guy in my high stakes league trying to sell me Zeke forever, and he wants Dallas Goedert, he wants Kareem Hunt, and he wants like a first-round pick and a second-round pick. And I keep telling him no. I'm like, listen, I would rather start Kareem Hunt pretty much over Zeke at this point. They're on the same page. So you're asking for Kareem Hunt and Zeke, and they're almost the same player. So why am I giving you my 21 first and Dallas Goedert? Yeah. Like I need Dallas Goedert to win. You know what I mean? Like I have George Kittle in that league. Well, I have George Kittle in that league, and Dallas Goedert's my number 2. It's like I'm shooting myself in the foot for equal production.
For 1 point different per game, basically.
1 point difference per game. And that's the problem. Like he wants all this back for Zeke, and it's like, but now once you ask for Kareem Hunt, it wipes out the whole trade for me because you're literally asking me to swap players here, but then give you 2 buttloads on top. Now, if I would say that, I would look at that deal from the outside going in like, wow, dude, you got a good haul. You got Kareem Hunt, Dallas Goedert, and a first. You bent him over. Because you got Kareem Hunt and Zeke who are pretty close when it comes to fantasy production. And honestly, Kareem Hunt's taking a dip somewhat because going into like week 9, 10, like he was running back 7 on the year, which is right ahead of where Zeke is now. They're almost the same player.
And we're looking at Zeke's season-long numbers. If we did weeks 6 or 7 through now,
when he's getting 2.5 points.
Yeah, much lower output than we're getting out of him right now. So
I'm just glad this came up as a topic because we hammer about every 3 or 4 weeks about this, about running backs, fluidity. Anytime, like if I could flip Zeke Elliott right now for Justin Jefferson, which is crazy in a startup, like I wouldn't be terrible with that. You know what I mean? But that's a lot about running backs. Let's move on here. Eagles offense. Garrett, how many pieces are we looking here that you feel are salvageable? Because Carson Wentz looks just completely broken.
It looks really bad for Carson Wentz right now. I mean, he's doing, because early in the year he had to be everything because there wasn't anything else.
Right.
Everyone was hurt. And I just don't think he can get out of that mentality. And I think he still thinks that he has to make that big play, so he's holding the ball too long. Or he has to be able to rifle it in there to that guy, so he throws it a second too late or too early. Or he does. He looks bad right now.
And he showed some of that, what you're saying, too, at the end of that game where it was like 3rd and long. He sprinted and got it. He didn't slide. He even went shoulders first. Like, I was like, oh, man, he's trying extra hard here.
And so, I mean, I respect it. I respect the effort. I respect what he's trying to do, but it's you got to be a little calmer. You got to be a little more collected. So it's really bad for this year. That said, I'm not convinced that he's done. Like, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong for Philly this year. It reminds me a little bit of Jared Goff last year where, the sky was kind of falling. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And Jared Goff came back this year and it's been just fine. And I think that's going to be the case. Do I think the ceiling has come down a little bit as to what we hoped he could potentially be? Yes, but I'm not buying him if I'm a contender because I don't want to touch him this year. I don't want to get within 50 feet of him this year. But in the offseason, or if I'm not a contender and I have a chance to buy him right now for Derek Carr or something along those lines, I might be interested.
I mean, I agree. I like Carson Wentz. I do think that they can turn around this offense. They have to get healthy. They have to get their offensive line back. They have to get some wide receivers acclimated to their system.
Yep.
And obviously Dallas Goedert is a nice long-term piece.
Love Dallas Goedert.
They're going to move on from Ertz. You know what I mean? They're going to move on from all the old wide receivers that they had. So it's going to be
Jeffrey's gone, Deshaun,
exactly,
all those guys.
Exactly. So it's going to be this younger group of wide receivers. Jalen Reagor is probably going to be the crown jewel of it.
Sure.
And
we still invested in Sanders, right?
Yeah, Miles Sanders.
They'll draft a receiver.
They'll draft a receiver, yeah.
They'll draft a wide receiver.
Again.
I would think, yeah, exactly. But Miles Sanders, I think, will be fine long term. He's a talented guy. He's just in a crappy situation, same as Carson Wentz. He's a talented guy. The situation this year in Philly is just terrible. It's as bad as it can get for a football team at this point. Nothing is working. Everyone's trying too hard. Everyone's trying to do everyone else's job a little bit here and there, and no one's just doing their own thing.
If you can sell Fulgham for anything, you're doing it, right?
Oh, yeah, for anything.
Absolutely.
Anything. Like literally anything.
Okay.
Even Greg Ward, I would take whatever I can get, because I think either they go via free agency, bringing a guy like Will Fuller, offset Reagor. I don't think those two complement each other too well.
Yeah, I'd rather a different style of player.
I look at them draft another guy
Mike
as
Williams.
well. Mike Williams would be a great addition to that football team. And I'm with Matt in the snowball effect. Sometimes you see this where a team they get in this rut. It's injuries. Things are going wrong. The quarterback's flustered, trying to do too much, so he's thrown into triple coverage instead of the open guy.
I think the Giants, the same division, are doing a little bit of the same. Yeah, Daniel Jones is doing a little bit of the same thing here in New York as Carson Wentz is there in Philly.
It's more pressure. Even the teams are going bad. It's not like, okay, sometimes when you'll see teams when they're out of the playoffs, everything's over. It's like they actually play a little bit better because there's no pressure on them whatsoever. But now that division's so bad,
they're all still
they're a game out of the playoff hunt at like 3-9.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy. So there's still some pressure there. It's Philly. The fan base is rabid.
For sure. The owner's not even showing up for a game in Cleveland. Like, what the heck is going on? Like, that's how distraught he was about the whole situation.
Yeah, so
because he knew how good the Browns were.
Yes, he knew they were going to get pounded.
There's a lot of concern there in Superflex, but
I think it was 2.
Yeah, I'm not. I feel the same way about him as I do Daniel Jones. Right? Like, I'm not out completely, but let's go ahead and reset in 21.
Sure.
It's been a crazy year, and let's see where he goes. Because if he starts off the same way, then he's done. He's broken. He's mentally broken. And sometimes that happens with quarterbacks. They literally get mentally broken, and they never recover.
Tim Couch, that happened to
Derek Carr.
Or David Carr.
David Carr, yep.
The talent's there. It's just you get mentally broken down by.
I think even RG3 that happened to a little bit. I know there was the knee as well, but
yeah.
But yeah, I think
he
RG3
just
happened too.
Man, like a
You
shell
watch
of
him a
himself.
little bit today. Yeah.
I mean, I had the, I was working from home, so I had the game on, but I was behind. I lost my power yesterday, so I was behind in work. I just kept glancing up and just seeing RG3 do RG3 things, like
No pressure, no diamonds.
just awful. I don't know. Then I watched him run and pull up lame on his left hamstring.
So that's it for the show. We'll be back next week to start the Dynasty Fantasy Football playoffs. If you're new to the show, we're going to do a little bit more talk throughout the weeks, and then we're going to start getting some a little bit more evergreen show. We're going to do a rookie redraft show.
Right.
The off season, the real Dynasty season is upon us. It's like weeks 1 through 15. It's kind of like, okay, let's manage the season, and then the real Dynasty work and the talk begins.
The real fun starts.
It really does. Like the in season's kind of like, okay, this is what we have to do. And it's like the off season happens. That's where the work comes in. That's where we actually hit our stride. This is where we dominate. It's
where we build our teams from the ground up, man.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of work. There's always a lot of work to do. Tons of us to do, and we're going to be here every step
Even more
of the way.
so this year.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're new, wait till you hear our rookie content. I would put our rookie content against anybody in the business. Our accuracy, our breakdowns, everything. I'm excited for another offseason to help build off-season dynasties as well. In the meantime, if you want, remember, the season's not over. It's just beginning. For people that are out of it, the people who are in the playoffs, and we're here to help at dynastynerds.com. Obviously, you're watching the podcast. Make sure you subscribe and like the YouTube channel. Hit that notification button as well, because we're going to start putting out in this offseason way more content, Dynasty-related, that aren't just exclusive to the podcast. So we're going to have the podcast, which will always be on YouTube now, so you can go find us now. We're going to be working to get it out actually the day of the podcast that drops, so they're both dropping simultaneously. But we'll also be having YouTube content on there, top 10s, buy lows, things like that as well. So make sure you get dynastynerds.com. And, of course, subscribe to the Nerd Herd. Get that bonus podcast. If you want to get all our rookie content, we do it. We're kind of like cheap that way, where we do half for free and half for paid for the Nerd Herd.
Money.
And there's a reason. It's because we put a tremendous amount of time. We literally can put any more time in our rookie content. It's why we've been so good at it over the years, is the amount of time we put into it. Yep. It's all about the Nerd Herd. For the price of a cup of coffee, you get all our rankings, you get the bonus podcast, and more importantly here too, I want to emphasize, is the film room. Okay, the film room gets you prepared for these rookies. The college football season has been crazy. Jared, how much film do we have in the film room just on the 21 class as of today?
I put a tweet out, what was that, Sunday, I think, and it was like 4 tweets long with how many different film that we uploaded.
Nice.
Updates, videos that we uploaded. So, there's some of these players have like 11 videos now.
Between the 19
because we have 2019 and 2020. So
guys like ETN, Najee Harris,
Chuba
Hubbard,
probably has a bunch in there.
And we help you. We always say this too. Like we help you. We give you our analysis, which is accurate, but about 70%, which is pretty damn good.
Great.
Yeah. But use your own eyes well at the film room. The Dynasty Nerds film room. You can watch entire player's game in 5 minutes. So you got a bathroom break, a lunch break, or something like that. You're just waiting for something. You watch it. Hey, here I'm gonna watch a game of Travis Etienne here. Travis Etienne here, and then you build your own analysis as well. Your eyes will always help you.
It's the same games we're watching, so you'll hear us talk about, okay, in the game against Auburn, okay, in the game against,
right.
You're literally watching the same thing that we are.
And then, of course, you got to get the Dynasty GM. I can't emphasize this enough, guys, gals. If you haven't tried the Dynasty GM, you got to try it today. It's got the trade calculator. It's got the league analyzer. So if you want to see exactly where you stand in your league, it's going to tell you exactly where you stand, where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, and more importantly, what the rest of the league's strengths and weaknesses are. So when you're ready to make that trade, you know exactly where to attack. We have the player cards now that are updated, so you click on that player. You can see where that player is in every single league. There are so many tools and interactive things to do in the Dynasty GM right now. It's mind-blowing where it's gone in 3 months. And it's free to try. So if you still have not tried it, go to dynastynerds.com, sign up, just try it. Just try it. For the price of a cup of coffee, this will help you become the best Dynasty player we could possibly be. Because, again, these tools, these podcasts, these tools are here for a reason, because this is not redraft, right? If you do it right, it become a dynasty. We're talking about, and you got to remember, most people play their leagues for money, right?
Right.
So where you might not come away a winner every single time, with the help of the Dynasty Nerds podcast and the Dynasty GM and the dynastynerds.com, you're going to be a contender and making those playoffs year in and year out. And you might not be coming away with the ship every year because you do need a little bit of luck on your side, no matter how strong your team is, but you're probably coming in third, second place routinely, and you're still making it a profitable team. And what we're here to do is help make sure that Dynasty sustains itself. Long-term success. And when you do have to blow it up, when it comes that time, you're ready to dominate that rookie draft. I mean, Matt, you just blew up your team in our 17-year-old league, and it's dominated with young talent. Guys like CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, DeAndre Swift. What's your other receiver?
Michael Pittman.
Michael Pittman Jr. I mean,
Brandon Ayuk. All in one draft.
In 3 years, your receiving team is going to look like one of the, like, how do you end up with a receiver? Like, you'll tweet out your team, be like, dude, how do you end up with a team so good? And you're like,
enjoy that 4-team league.
Yeah, exactly. But that's how those teams emerge.
Making
it's by
moves.
dominate your rookie draft and making the right moves at the right time. We're helping you do that. Make sure you get to it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us a rating and review on the podcast if you enjoy it. And that's it. We'll be back next week. Hopefully everybody that's listening is making the playoffs. And of course, I'm sure, half of you are not making the playoffs, but that's okay because we're just now getting ready into 2021. Even when we're losing,
we're winning.
We're winning. See you next week.
Adios.